What's going on, everybody, and welcome back. Today we are breaking down a pure Arc Warlock build that doesn't use the traditional Geomax stabilizer or getaway artist. I wanted to focus on ability regen, super regen, as well as just create something that's going to do pretty decent as you're trying to power level up. Now, to break down our subclass, we are going with Chaos Reach. Really, whatever super here you want to use is going to be perfectly fine, though Chaos Reach will do more damage at the end of the day. Then for our melee ability, we're opting to go with Ball Lightning. Basically, we fire a ball of lightning at targets, and it releases additional lightning strikes while we are amplified, which we are going to be very often. Now for the grenade, it's entirely up to you what you want to be using. I'm opting to go with Flux Grenade because it does do a chunk of damage, though Pulse Grenade is a great alternative as well. Then for the aspects, we are going with Ionic Sentry. So when we defeat an arc target with a kinetic or an arc weapon, or even arc abilities, it'll charge up an arc turret that can periodically chain lightning between nearby targets, granting us a stack of bolt charge as well as blinding enemies, which will also stun unstoppables. Then there's Electrostatic Mind. Defeating targets with arc abilities and defeating jolted targets or even the blinded targets is going to create an Ionic Trace. This build revolves heavily around ability regen and Ionic Traces. So every time we pick up an Ionic Trace, it will grant us ability energy as well as some super energy. It did get a little bit of a nerf when Edge of Fate launched, but it is still a fun playstyle. Plus, being amplified all the time, giving us a 15% reduction in damage is not bad either. Now, for the fragments, we're opting to go with Spark of Resistance. So while we're surrounded by combatants, we are more resistant to incoming damage, just aiding in survivability. Then there is Spark of Ions. Defeating a jolted target or defeating targets with Bolt Charge creates an Ionic Trace. Then there's Spark of Discharge. Arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an Ionic Trace, and collecting an Ionic Trace will grant us Bolt Charge stacks. Then lastly is Spark of Amplitude. Rapidly defeating targets while we're amplified will create Orbs of Power. Again, we're going to be amplified so often, it just makes helping us create those Orbs of Power so much easier, feeding back into our super ability and just keeping the ball rolling. Now, we're going to be creating a lot of those Ionic Traces, so to get the most out of those, we are opting to go with the featured exotic, the Fallen Sunstar. It has the intrinsic perk Ionic Conductor, so Ionic Traces that we create move faster, grant additional ability energy, and nearby allies will also get ability energy when you collect your Ionic Trace. And you're going to collect these extremely often, giving your teammates an even higher uptime on their abilities as well. Now, for the loadout, your special weapon doesn't necessarily matter. If you do use something featured, you do get a little bonus to damage with it. So we're opting to go with Mint Retrograde with Rewind Rounds and Chain Reaction. Doesn't matter what role you really have, any Mint Retrograde is going to be phenomenal, or if you want to use a kinetic weapon to get more Ionic Traces, you can do that as well. For our exotic, we are going with this Centrifuge. This is a featured arc auto rifle that has overcharged capacitor, so sprinting, sliding, and firing the weapon will build up temporary electrostatic charges, increasing our range, increasing our reload speed, and final blows when we have a high charge will cause the targets to explode, and maximum charge explosions will also blind targets as well, just giving us another way to aid into survivability because you can frankly blind a bunch of enemies at once when you kill just one. And it has regenerative motion, so sprinting will gradually reload this weapon. So a good way to do this is actually just to run around with this, not actually reload your magazine, get it pretty low, continue sprinting, and let it reload on its own, building up that overcharged capacitor. Now for the heavy weapon, we did manage to get this beautiful Boomslang to drop with Rapid Hit and Vorpal Weapon. This is an Arc 3-burst linear fusion rifle, and I highly recommend using Temporal Blast on it because of the insane amount of damage that it can do. And I do want to show you this just before we get into the artifact mods and the armor mods and then take this into some content, the difference in damage between not having Temporal Blast on and having Temporal Blast on. So first up, let's take this mod off. We're going to go test this against our little friend Carl over here and just see the difference in damage that it can do. Also, one other thing is when you have a Vice Stinger on it, damaging a combatant with this weapon has a small chance to reload the magazine, basically giving you a couple shots here and there, just aiding in your DPS. Now, to hit up Carl, we want to see exactly how much we can do with Rapid Hit Vorpal and Vice Stinger with without having Temporal Blast on and then tossing that mod back on and seeing the damage difference it can do. So this right here is without having Temporal Blast on, just having Rapid Hit, Vorpal Weapon, and then Vice Stinger. Starting off, my boy Carl here. Hopefully we can hit all headshots because frankly, sometimes our aim is bad. But we got Vice Stinger to proc. I think we might have missed one headshot. We did 11,455 damage without having Temporal Blast on. So let's go ahead and toss this bad boy back on. It's unfortunate that featured gear is the only thing and the new seasonal gear is the only thing that gets access to these seasonal mods. But in my opinion, I think they're definitely worth actually using. So 11,455 was our base. Now let's switch this. We have Temporal Blast on. And since we have Rapid Hit and since we have just a 3-round burst linear, it does pretty much proc Temporal Blast pretty often. That gives us 16,968, so a little over a 5,500 damage increase just by tossing on Temporal Blast. One of the best mods in the entire game. I highly recommend using it on any weapon you can when you're going into PvE. Now, let's talk about the artifact mods that do help this build up a little bit, and then we'll break down the armor mods we're using, taking it into some in-game content, and just seeing how much fun we can actually have with it. Because remember, not every build has to be broken, a game-breaking meta. Sometimes it can just be a lot of fun to play with. So with the artifact mods that really help this out, mostly is going to be Shield Crush. So while we're amplified, our grenade will recharge faster as well as deal more damage. That's the only one we're necessarily getting a benefit on here. Now for the armor mods that we're going to be using, I do like to focus my personal builds on high grenade stat and high super stat. Frankly, to me, that's a fun way to play. But at the end of the day, if you focus on something like high melee and high weapons or high super, high grenade and high weapons, whatever stats you really want to focus on that fit your preferred playstyle is highly recommended with a build like this. Because remember, we're not taking it into the hardest content in the game. We're using this specifically for the content that we're playing to power level or just have fun with. Now, with the Now, with our Fallen Sunstar, we are opting to go with an Ashes to Assets, so we gain bonus super energy on grenade kills, a Harmonic Siphon to create orbs off of rapid multi-kills with our arc weapons, and then a Super Font just to aid in having more super uptime and more super damage while we pick up orbs of power. Then we're also going on the gauntlets, a fastball so we throw grenades further and farther. Then we're also going to opt to go with a firepower, probably double firepower here personally for me. You don't necessarily have to do it. This just gives you a higher uptime on your cooldown for creating orbs with your grenades. You could also toss on a melee font mod, which would be really good to give you plus 20 on your melee stat when you have an orb of power picked up, or something like momentum transfer. So if you cause damage with your grenade, it reduces your melee cooldown. Though with the amount of ionic traces we're creating, we're gonna have a pretty high uptime on our abilities. So I wanna create as much orbs of power as I possibly can. Then for our chest piece, going resistance mods that match whatever activity we're doing, I would recommend 3 or at least 2 plus a concussive dampener. Really just depends on the activity that you're doing and how comfortable you feel in that activity. Next up is going to be our legs. We're going to toss on one of these here Arc Surge mods to assist in our power weapon as well as our auto rifle. Then we're also going to toss on, oh my god, what did I do to this build? Better already because recuperation got absolutely gutted, and then absolution. So when we pick up an orb of power, it is going to reduce cooldown for all of our abilities. Lastly, for our wonderful class item, I don't think I really ever changed these mods too much from Powerful Attraction as well as Reaper. So you use your class ability, it picks up orbs within 12 meters because of Powerful Attraction. And then your next weapon defeat after you cast that rift is going to create an orb of power. Then since we're going to have a pretty high uptime on our abilities, you don't necessarily need something that reduces the cooldown even further, like I'm using Outreach. You could easily toss on a Restorative Finisher, Special Ammo Finisher. Those I would probably recommend if you're not using something like Outreach. But hey, we want to get our grenade back, or our melee back pretty quickly, so we might as well have just a little bit of extra cooldown to help us out. Now, let's go take this into some content and see how well it can actually perform. All right, so we're doing the Conflux solely because that bonus drop is actually in there. And when it comes to power leveling between 400 and like where I'm at around 409, it doesn't necessarily make sense to do the hardest possible content to get like an A tier rating. or really anything of that nature. It's wanting to do things as quickly as possible. Because at the end of the day, you're just going to make it harder for yourself, which gives you less opportunity just to have more fun and try out more builds. So having full overcharge capacitor there just helps aid in that jolting a bunch of different targets all at once. And I forgot there's a wyvern in here somewhere. We've killed half the room, most of the room right now, and we have half our super back, which is really, really good just for that ability regen. Now we've got ourselves an Ionic Sentry, so we can go into this next room and then blind a bunch of targets. The problem, though, with this specific room is once it gets a little further away, they don't really go to you. So Ionic Sentry can also just kill targets, too. Really, really nice. Now that we're amplified, we can create orbs of power just by having that fragment on. But obviously it's not going to create it with every single kill. So we got some more targets over there. Overcharge active, helping kill a bunch of people all at once. No, sorry, not a bunch of people. Both those harpies at the same time. Got ourselves a barrier, I think, right there. No, it's just an overload. We'll just do that real quick. Blind ourselves a little bit. And the bolt charge procced on that one. We're having a lot of Ionic Sentries proc, which is really, really nice. Frankly, we don't need to use our super, but I hit the wrong button. So bear with me. I don't know how many times I've, like, my grenade and my super button are very close together. So I probably should change that, but I don't want to learn a new layout. That sounds really scary. We'll get this guy killed. That was, we had, pretty sure we had temporal blast to proc on that. Which, like I said, temporal blast on this is actually crazy. Hits him from that far, which is really, really nice. Building a little over a quarter of our super back. And then, of course, overcharge capacitor does start to regen just by getting weapon defeats, which is really nice. You don't necessarily have to run around and sprint around with it the whole time to get it to recharge. Though, it's nice that when you're in traversal sections and you're running around, it will just continuously fill up that bar. So by the time you get to the next group of enemies, you're going to have a full overload capacitor to take out a bunch of people all at once. Then our Ionic Sentry is back. And that Flux Grenade should kill him. There we go. And we see we just threw our Flux Grenade, and our grenade is almost completely recharged. So that's what I mean when we're talking about the improved Ionic Sentries. Fallen Sunstar has insane ability regen. We do have a high grenade stat, not the highest, but it does give us our abilities back extremely fast. So if you're just looking for builds that are fun to use, have great ability uptime, and can do a lot of content that is required in the game when it comes to leveling, or whether it's solo ops, fire team ops, or pinnacle ops, because remember, we're not doing in-game contest mode right here with this build. We are solely just having fun with it and enjoying the variety of builds that we can actually build into. Plus, with having featured gear into the game, I really wanted to take time and create builds centered around those and actually enjoy them, because I don't think I've ever used Fallen Sunstar in this game once. So it's nice to be able to use stuff that I don't think I would normally use. That guy just does not want to die. I'm leaving you guys behind. So that's kind of what this whole thing is. If you guys do want to see more featured build content, feel free to let me know down below, because at the end of the day, I want to create builds for you guys that you actually enjoy, that you have fun with. All right, hey Minotaur, sir, leave me alone. Toss that Flux Grenade on him. Did a pretty decent chunk of damage. I know we're only negative 11 under. We'll go throw another sentry right there, blind some targets. Use our auto rifle as much as possible. And frankly, I hate this wyvern, so he's gonna get killed. And we killed the, not the harpy. I always forget what those shielded dudes are called. Sir, can you not leave me alone? This boss isn't the best to showcase this on, but we're going to give it a shot. Because frankly, his crit is really small. Oh, that took that out. So we'll throw this guy. Hopefully kill some of the imps. There we go. We used our super not too long ago, and we almost have it back. Throw that. Get some blind effects off. And remember, the blind doesn't affect every single enemy. It's mostly yellow bars as well as just red bar ads. It's not going to really blind a bunch of other stuff. It will blind unstoppables and stun them, but you're not going to go blinding bosses with it. So try to remember that one, because sometimes I forget. I don't even think it'll blind this harpy. Yeah, it's not going to blind the harpy. He's his own dude. Where did he go? I don't think I'm going to make this jump. Sorry, I solely popped that super there because I knew it would just give me a little bit of lift in the air and actually save my life right there. Because we don't need our super going back into this boss fight. He's pretty easy to kill. He's just a Vex on a platform. Okay. Those guys are very annoying. Let's go throw our flux grenade at him and miss. That's the one thing about flux grenades is they fly very, very straight. So it's really easy to miss your target with it. That's why I'm saying pulse grenade's a great alternative, frankly, because you won't miss as often. And we should proc temporal blast right there and get the kill with this melee. And there we go. Hopefully we get a prime from this drop. Able to get the time, able to get the bonuses. Plus using all featured gear is really nice. No prime whatsoever. So there's this Arc Warlock build. I've been having a lot of fun with it, just taking it into solo ops, taking it into fire team ops, and just trying to grind for weapons that I'm looking for power level upgrades as well. So if you guys enjoyed any type of video like this, feel free to let me know down below. Subscribe if you guys are new, but as always, thank you so much for coming and watching, and I will catch you in the next one.